Howdy, with this video, I want to go over the sample student essay for essay number 1. I'm just getting deeper into the section on material for essay 1 on the content page. For YouTube video number 7, I went over the assignment in general and the topic choices. YouTube video number 8, I went over the fiction terms. And again, for this one, I'm going to go over the student essay, kind of show you why I chose this one to represent what I'm looking for with essay number 1. You're going to notice pretty quickly that it's a topic you don't get to choose. I did that on purpose so nobody's copying. Even if you don't want to do that intentionally, it's hard not to kind of gravitate towards something you're seeing in front of you. He's going to be talking about Thomas Paine's Common Sense. Again, this wasn't an option you had, but I'm kind of going to be focused on the Enlightenment here. Notice he's got his essay formatted properly. Last name, page number in the header. His name, my name, class section number, date. And you also see a couple of commentary there. I'm not going to worry about that. You can read this yourself. But for the first paragraph on this essay, you're going to define your particular movement, whether it's postmodernism, postcolonialism, the grotesque, modernism, whatever it is that you've chosen. But you're going to spend this first paragraph simply defining that movement. And you're going to use sources to do this. You're probably no expert on that, on your particular movement, and you're going to have to use sources, probably mostly from the internet, and good sources from the internet to get your definition going. And you kind of see here, kind of introduce the Enlightenment very quickly, and use research to support what he's saying. Here he's using an historian, and you notice he's formatting his short quotes correctly. He's got the quote marks around it. It's 3 or fewer lines. He's using the brackets to show changes or additions to a quote. Otherwise, quotes should be word for word, right? We have the citation there with the first word on the works cited page and the page number. He's actually got it cited twice with the first name on the works cited page, which is fine. It's a little redundant, but it's not really an error. Then she notice he's introducing his quotes. Then he gives the quotes. And again, he's using when you see these brackets, that's showing that he changed a word for some reason, or added a word for some reason for clarification or whatever. Here we got a summary or paraphrase. This is in his own words and sentence structure. He might have taken what Beverly McClure, said and reworded it so it's shorter, or just kind of cut out a lot of the jibber jabber and got to his point. Still using her ideas, so he needs to use his own words and sentence structure to summarize or paraphrase, and he also still has to cite that. You can't just take her information, restate it, and pretend like it was his own, right? Theoretically, this is stuff you learned in Comp 1. If it's been a couple of years since Comp 1, then might get a little foggy there. But make sure you kind of notice the difference between the short quotes, which are word for word, summary and paraphrase is your own words and sentence structure, but either one you have to cite the source you're using. Here he moves on to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and now he's going to use these ellipses, the 3 periods, the 3 dots. That shows he took something away from a quote, or so he omitted something from the quote. If you watch quotes from somebody like President Trump or Obama or whoever, when they quote, sometimes you'll see those 3 dots, and they're telling you they took something out of the quote that they're using. It's interesting to go back and see what they took out. Theoretically, if you're using brackets and ellipses, you're not changing the meaning of the original, right? You're just shortening it or adding something for clarification. But he's starting to use these terms. For something like liberalism, I would expect him to define that later on if he's going to use that as one of his talking points. That's kind of an inflammatory word in modern politics, and my guess is he's going to be using this differently for his essay. But he has a pretty good definition of the Enlightenment. You're not really developing this definition for someone who has no clue what the Enlightenment is, but you do want to kind of give a good definition so the person reading the essay knows where you're headed with what you're going to say. Kind of gives a little concluding sentence there to end the paragraph, but kind of notice that first paragraph is almost all research, right? He's not presenting himself as an expert on the Enlightenment, but he's presenting experts on the Enlightenment and showing us what they have to say. So that's the first paragraph. Notice he didn't even mention his writer or the work he's going to discuss. He's going to do that in the second paragraph, and that's what I want. The Enlightenment authors, Thomas Paine, author of Common Sense, is remembered as one of the most influential. Kind of keeping this, generally I want this second paragraph to be very short. Introduce the author, the work. He might have put in the year it was published. Um, Kind of avoid a passive voice like that. It's when you use passive voice, you're taking the person doing the action out of the sentence. Uh, in other words, who's doing the remembering here? It's not really very clear. Um, some students just kind of do that naturally. If you work for the government, you're going to use passive voice quite naturally. Money was lost when mistakes were made, and we use passive voice to escape responsibility for our actions. My children will say the lamp was broke, and you're like, okay, who broke the lamp, right? But he's kind of introducing the writing very quickly. Generally, I don't want research. It's in PDF. I can't combine those. In the second paragraph, he kind of asked about this, and it was short and quick and fine. Um, but he kind of introduces the work pretty quickly, and then he gets to his thesis statement. He's going to tell us what 3 elements of the Enlightenment he's going to apply to Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Common sense includes elements of almost every central idea of the Enlightenment, including those of logic and reason, toleration, and liberalism. He picked that word liberalism again, so I'm definitely going to expect him to define that when we get down to that third body paragraph. But that's all the second paragraph should do. Introduce the work as quickly as you can and get to your thesis statement. And your thesis statement should be giving us the 3 points you're going to take from your first paragraph and what you're going to spend a body paragraph discussing about with each one. So I'm going to expect a paragraph on logic and reason, one on toleration, and one on liberalism. And that's exactly what he does. And I'm not going to read this whole thing to you. You can read faster than I can talk. But he's going to spend a paragraph here on logic and reason and support what he's saying, using quotes from Common Sense to show here's what I'm talking about when I say he uses logic and reason. Notice with long quotes, 4 or more lines. He's got them offset, tabbed over twice. They're also called block quotes. Some of you are a little confused about short quote versus long quote. Short quotes are 3 or fewer lines with MLA, or long quotes are 4 or more lines. Short quotes have the quote marks around them. Long quotes are tabbed over twice like this. Try not to rely too much on long quotes. You're going to see this student does, but he does a good job of introducing the quotes and talking about the quote once he gives it. Don't just let long quotes do all the work. Quotes should support what you're saying, not say it for you, right? Make sure you're keeping that in mind with long quotes. So a couple of long quotes there. Again, there's the ellipses showing an omission from the quote. But notice when he gives a quote, he comments on it. He just doesn't let it hang there. He's showing us how that quote's supporting what he's saying. Then we get the next paragraph. The thesis said he was going to talk about toleration. And there he is, talking about toleration. And again, doing the same thing. Again, I kind of want you to get away a little bit from researching the body paragraphs. I want this to be you and you using quotes. Something short like this, I'll probably not worry about too much. But I don't want big long quotes from outside sources in these body paragraphs. I want you quoting from the work you're discussing, the short story, the sermon, or the play with Los Vendidos. Again, he introduces the quote, gives the quote. If he takes something out of the quote, he's using those ellipses. And again, once he gives a quote, he's commenting on it fairly fully. Could use a little more commentary there. But he's doing a pretty good job. He's not relying on the long quotes for word count. That's usually what happens. Students just start putting in these long quotes, trying to get to the word count. It just ends up making the reader do a lot of work. The last one is going to be about liberalism. And like I was hoping for, he defines liberalism right there. A little bit different definition than how we use the word liberal now, right? And goes in and shows us exactly what he's talking about. There's a short quote. He uses 2 or 3 short quotes to get his point across. But you kind of see that's how this essay should work. First paragraph, I'll make you all dizzy doing that. First paragraph is the definition of the movement. Second paragraph, you introduce the work and give your thesis. Show us what 3 points you're going to talk about in your essay. And again, these 3 points should come from that first paragraph within your definition for the Enlightenment or postmodernism or modernism or whatever movement you're going to be talking about. These 3 points just can't come out of thin air. They have to come from that first paragraph. Then the conclusion, with this particular essay, he could have developed this a little bit more. A good way to think about it is, what's the point of your analysis? What am I supposed to take away from it? Is this supposed to change who I am or how I live or how I think about something? And hopefully it does. I mean, obviously as a student, you're like, I'm doing this so I can get through the class, but try to, this the last thing I'm going to read is that concluding paragraph. Make sure it does more than just restate your essay. I've already read the essay. And once I see that thesis statement, I know what the 3 body paragraphs are going to do. Then I read those. If you just go back and restate what you've already said twice already, it gets a little tedious. Maybe even a little insulting sometimes. And you kind of taught to do that in speeches, but with writing, you're kind of hoping the reader, especially a shorter essay like this, can keep it in their head and try to, in conclusion, kind of give us the big idea you're pushing here. And that'll differ depending on which movement you're doing. You'll see the works cited page down there at the bottom, formatted properly. When you see those citations, you should be using the first word on the works cited page. This is a book, so it should have a page number. You notice there are no page numbers on the Thomas Paine Common Sense. That's because he's getting this off the internet here. So the one reason I like to use this essay is because it's all different forms of citation. He's using short quotes and long quotes, doing a good job with the brackets and ellipses. Just a good student overall too. In fact, he's be interesting to catch up with him, see where he's at with his studies. But I'm going to stop there. If you have questions about your essay, hopefully these videos have helped a little bit. Hopefully it helps look at a sample essay, know the student has done this and survived, lived to tell the tale. But obviously you're going to have questions as you work on this, and I'm going to be here to answer them. But if you have questions, let me know. But I'm going to get off here, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.